The Hamilton Corp boardroom fell silent as my father stood at the head of the table, his expression radiating satisfaction. The morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the faces of our board members, all handpicked by him over the years. After careful consideration, he announced, "I've decided who will lead Hamilton Corp into the future." His eyes swept past me to rest on my younger brother, Michael. "Our new CEO will be Michael Hamilton." The room erupted in polite applause. Michael stood, straightening his custom suit, accepting handshakes and congratulations. I maintained my pleasant smile, the one I'd perfected over 15 years of being overlooked. "Michael has shown exceptional leadership potential," Dad continued. "His aggressive expansion strategies and bold vision are exactly what we need." I glanced down at the quarterly reports in front of me, reports showing Michael's aggressive strategies had cost us market share in 3 key sectors. But no one else seemed to notice these details. They were too busy celebrating. "Sarah," my brother turned to me, "I trust you'll continue heading the research division? You've always been so thorough with the technical side of things." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. The caller ID read, "Elena Martinez, Executive Assistant." "Excuse me," I stepped out into the hallway. "Yes. Ms. Hamilton." Elena's voice was crisp and professional. "The acquisition team needs final approval. Should we proceed with the purchase of Hamilton Corp's controlling shares?" I smiled, glancing back through the glass walls where my family continued their celebration. "Yes, proceed as planned. And Elena? Activate Protocol Omega." "Right away, ma'am. Vertex Enterprises will announce the acquisition in approximately 20 minutes." I returned to the boardroom just as Michael was outlining his vision for the company. "We need to think bigger, bolder dash." My phone buzzed again. Then everyone else's phones started chiming with news alerts. Dad frowned at his screen, then paled. "What is this?" "Breaking news, it seems," I said calmly, taking my seat. "Vertex Enterprises acquires controlling interest in Hamilton Corp," Michael read aloud, his voice shaking. "This has to be a mistake." "No mistake," I replied, opening my laptop. "Vertex has been quietly purchasing shares through various subsidiaries for the past 3 years. As of 9 minutes ago, we own 51% of Hamilton Corporation." "We?" Dad's eyes narrowed. The boardroom doors opened. Elena entered with a team of executives, all wearing Vertex badges. "Allow me to properly introduce myself." I stood. "Sarah Hamilton, CEO of Vertex Enterprises. Though you might know us better by our subsidiary brands in tech, manufacturing, and global logistics." "Impossible," Michael whispered. "You run research division." "Here, yes. But did any of you ever wonder what I did with my evenings? My weekends? The innovations I developed but somehow never quite implemented at Hamilton Corp?" I pulled up a presentation on the main screen. Vertex's portfolio, market position, and global reach. Numbers that made Hamilton Corp look like a small regional player. "You see," I continued, "while you were focused on Michael's bold vision, I was building something bigger. Something better. And now." I gestured to Elena, who distributed new organizational charts. "I own the company you never thought I could lead." The silence was deafening. Dad's face had turned an interesting shade of red. "You can't do this. We're family." "Family." I laughed softly. "Like when you passed me over for promotion 5 times. Or when Michael took credit for my innovation pipeline last year." "That was different," Michael protested. "Business decisions dash." "Yes, business decisions," I cut him off. "Just like this is a business decision. Vertex Enterprises is acquiring Hamilton Corp because, quite frankly, you've mismanaged it to the point of vulnerability." I nodded to Elena, who pulled up detailed financial analyses on the screens. "Your aggressive strategies have resulted in a 40% drop in market share," I pointed to the charts. 3 failed product launches, 2 botched international expansions, and... I paused for effect, a rather interesting pattern of fund allocation to personal projects. Michael's face went white. The board members started murmuring. "How long?" Dad demanded. "How long have you been planning this? Remember when you told me I lacked strategic thinking 5 years ago?" I smiled. "That was the day I founded Vertex. Every time you praised Michael's risky decisions while ignoring my warnings, I bought more shares. Every innovation you dismissed, I developed at Vertex instead. My phone buzzed again, market alerts showing Hamilton Corp's stock soaring on news of the Vertex acquisition. Congratulations, brother. I turned to Michael. You're still getting a promotion today. Just not to CEO. Vertex needs a new regional sales director for our Alaska office. Alaska? He sputtered. Unless you prefer our Siberian operations? I raised an eyebrow. I hear it's lovely there in winter. The boardroom doors opened again as more Vertex executives entered, carrying transition documents and new contracts. Now, I took my father's seat at the head of the table. Let's discuss the future of Hamilton Corp under Vertex leadership. Elena, please show my father and brother to their new offices. I believe they're on the 3rd floor now. 3rd floor. Dad looked stricken. But that's middle management? Yes. I smiled. Consider it a learning opportunity. Though do mind the dress code, Vertex has stricter standards than Michael's casual Fridays. As they were let out, I heard Michael asking Elena about relocation packages to Alaska. Her response about economy class flights and shared housing echoed down the hallway. One more thing, I called after them. The Hamilton name comes down from the building tonight. Vertex branding goes up tomorrow. My phone lit up with messages from other family members. Mom, darling, we need to talk about this. Sister Rebecca, what have you done? Uncle James, this is outrageous. I forwarded them all to Elena with a simple instruction, standard acquisition response template. Looking around the boardroom at the shell-shocked faces of my father's carefully chosen board members, I opened my laptop. Now then, I began, let's review your positions under the new management structure. Some of you may want to update your resumes. The morning sun caught the Vertex logo on my laptop, casting a shadow across the Hamilton Corp documents scattered on the table. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong, it's buying the company they thought you couldn't run. And I'd bought it right out from under their oblivious noses. By afternoon, the business world was buzzing with the news. The quiet Hamilton daughter hadn't just outmaneuvered her family, she'd built a corporate giant in secret while they underestimated her. I sat in my real office at Vertex Tower, watching workers remove the Hamilton name from our newly acquired building. Elena entered with a stack of financial reports and media requests. The markets are responding enthusiastically, she noted. Hamilton Corp stock up 70% since the announcement. Vertex shares hitting new records. And the family? I asked, though I could see them through the security feeds, gathered in what used to be Michael's executive suite, now a standard conference room. Your father's tried calling 15 times. Michael's looking up real estate in Alaska. Apparently he thinks it's a negotiating tactic. Your mother's in the lobby insisting on her right to see her daughter. Elena paused. Should I let her up? I watched the monitors as my mother paced, designer handbag swinging agitatedly. No. Let's review the morning headlines first. Elena spread out the newspapers. Vertex reveals secret CEO, Sarah Hamilton's corporate coup. Family shock as overlooked daughter acquires Hamilton Corp. Corporate mastermind, the silent rise of Sarah Hamilton. Vertex Enterprises, the hidden giant behind 100 brands. My phone buzzed. Michael had switched from calling to texting. Please, we can work something out. Alaska? Really? I smiled, remembering his words from last year's board meeting. Sarah's better suited for background roles. She lacks the Hamilton drive for leadership. Elena pulled up more data on her tablet. The transition teams have found some interesting irregularities in Hamilton Corp's books, particularly regarding Michael's pet projects. Document everything, I instructed. Forward it to legal. And schedule a full audit of every decision he's made in the last 5 years. Already done. Also, your father's executive bathroom is being converted to a storage closet as requested. I smiled. Dad had once told me I'd never have an executive office, let alone an executive bathroom. Now he'd have to use the common facilities 3 floors down. The intercom buzzed. Ms. Hamilton, your mother is becoming insistent. I watched her on the security feed, now arguing with Vertex Security. Fine. Conference room C. Let her wait 30 minutes first. While she waited, I conducted my first official business as Hamilton Corp's new owner. Signed papers dissolving the old board. Approved the new organizational structure. Authorized investigations into several of Michael's suspicious deals. Finally, I headed to conference room C, where my mother sat clutching her handbag, her perfect makeup showing signs of stress. "Sarah, darling," she stood. "This little power play has made your point. Now let's discuss this reasonably." Power play. I activated the room's screens, displaying Vertex's global operations. "Mother, this isn't a tantrum. This is business. Something you all claimed I never understood. But taking over the family company? Moving Michael to Alaska? Actually, I checked my phone, he's just been reassigned to our Siberian office." He replied rather rudely to Elena's relocation memo. "Siberia." She sank back into her chair. "Your father built this company into a vulnerable target," I finished. "While you all focused on appearances and status, I built something better. Something bigger. Want to guess how many companies Vertex owns?" She shook her head. "Over 300, I continued. "Tech startups, manufacturing plants, global logistics networks. Hamilton Corp isn't even our largest acquisition this year." My phone buzzed, another message from Michael. "Siberia? This isn't funny anymore." "You know what's funny, Mother? How none of you noticed. Every time you dismissed my ideas, I implemented them at Vertex. Every time you praised Michael's failures, I bought more Hamilton shares. Every family dinner where you questioned my career choices, I was building an empire." "We were wrong," she whispered. "Yes, you were. And now." I gestured to the screens showing live footage of the Hamilton name being removed from the building. "Now you get to watch your precious family legacy become just another subsidiary in my portfolio." The next morning, I arrived at what was now Vertex Tower to find the transformation nearly complete. The gleaming Vertex logo had replaced the Hamilton name, and employees were receiving their new corporate IDs. "Status report," I asked Elena as we rode the private elevator to my office, formerly my father's pride and joy. "Michael's flight to Siberia leaves tomorrow. Your father's been moved to his new third-floor office. He's currently arguing about the size of his cubicle. The audit team has uncovered." She checked her tablet. 17 major irregularities in the past year's books alone. The elevator opened directly into my new office suite. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see 3 other Hamilton Corp buildings, all now sporting Vertex branding. And the media? I settled behind the desk that had once been my father's throne. 28 interview requests, including CNBC, Bloomberg, and Forbes. The Wall Street Journal wants to do a cover story, "The Silent Queen: How Sarah Hamilton Built a Corporate Empire in Plain Sight." My phone buzzed, a message from Rebecca. "They're calling an emergency family meeting. Please come." I pulled up the security feeds. The Hamilton family had gathered in what used to be the executive conference room, now a standard meeting space on the 3rd floor. The contrast between their designer suits and the mundane surroundings was deliciously ironic. "Should I have security remove them?" Elena asked. "No," I smiled. "Let's go say hello. But first." I pressed a button on my desk. The meeting room screens came to life, displaying Vertex's latest acquisition numbers. The Hamilton family watched in shock as their company's name disappeared into the vast web of Vertex subsidiaries. Walking into the room, I saw the toll the past 24 hours had taken. Dad's perfect posture had crumbled. Michael's confident smirk was gone. Mother's hands couldn't stop shaking. Family meeting? I took the head seat, another power shift that didn't go unnoticed. How nice. Usually I have to be reminded these exist. "Sarah," Rebecca started, "we need to discuss this as a family." "Discuss what?" I pulled out my tablet. "How Michael's brilliant strategies lost us market share. How Dad's experienced leadership missed Vertex buying shares. Or how about we discuss this?" I projected more financial data. Michael's failed projects, Dad's outdated policies, the millions wasted on maintaining family appearances while the company faltered. "We made mistakes," Dad admitted quietly. "No," I corrected, "you made assumptions. You assumed I was weak because I was quiet. You assumed I was ineffective because I was thorough. You assumed I was content in the background because I didn't fight for the spotlight." My phone buzzed. Elena sending real-time updates. Siberian office confirmed Michael's arrival schedule. Audit team found 3 more irregularities. Your father's parking spot has been reassigned to general staff. Here's what happens next, I continued. Michael leaves for Siberia tomorrow. Dad, you'll report to the new VP of operations. She's 28 and absolutely brilliant. Everything you claimed I wasn't. Mother, the company car service you loved? Discontinued. Welcome to public transportation. And the company? Rebecca asked. Will be fully integrated into Vertex within 6 months. The Hamilton name will exist only in corporate history books. A cautionary tale about underestimating the quiet ones. You're destroying Dad's legacy, Michael protested. No, I smiled. I'm building my own. While you were playing CEO, I built a company 10 times larger than Hamilton Corporation. While Dad was dismissing my potential, I was buying his company piece by piece. While Mother was lamenting my lack of ambition, I was creating an empire. My phone buzzed again. The Vertex logo installation was complete on all Hamilton properties. Now, I stood straightening my suit. I have a company to run. Several hundred of them, actually. Elena will show you out through the staff entrance, of course. The executive elevator is for executives only. As I walked out, I heard Mother burst into tears and Dad trying to argue about his parking spot. But above it all, I heard the sweet sound of success. Construction crews dismantling the last traces of the Hamilton legacy while building something much bigger, my legacy. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just taking over the family company. It's revealing that you've built something so much greater while they were busy underestimating you. And as I looked out over the city from my new office, watching the Vertex name shine on building after building, I couldn't help but smile. The quiet daughter they'd overlooked had become the queen they couldn't ignore. The Sullivan Group's quarterly business meeting was always an exercise in family politics, but this time they'd outdone themselves. I stood in the doorway of the main conference room, watching my brother Michael arrange nameplates for the important attendees. Oh, Sarah, he said, barely glancing up. The storage room's through there. We need all the space in here for actual clients. I looked down at my simple black pantsuit, expertly tailored Armani, though they'd never notice, and thought about the irony of the situation. About the documents in my briefcase that could change everything. Actual clients? I asked mildly. You know, people who matter, my sister Jennifer chimed in, adjusting her flashy designer suit. Not small-time consultants like you. Small-time consultant. That's what they called me now. The family disappointment who'd walked away from Sullivan Group 5 years ago to find herself. They had no idea that I'd found a lot more than myself. I'd built an empire. The storage room's actually gotten quite crowded, Michael smirked. But I'm sure you can find a spot between the old filing cabinets and the broken printer. Very appropriate for your position. I thought about the email I'd received that morning, confirming that Sterling Enterprises had just acquired another 5% of Sullivan Group's shares. My company now owned 47% of their family business, all purchased through various shell corporations over the past 3 years. Not that they knew Sterling Enterprises was mine. The meeting starts in 20 minutes, Jennifer announced importantly. We have some major clients coming in. Very exclusive deals in the works. She smoothed her skirt, preening. I'm handling the Maxwell contract personally. I bit back a smile, knowing that the Maxwell contract was actually with Sterling Enterprises. With me. They just didn't know it yet. How's the independent consulting going? Michael asked with fake concern. Still working out of that little office downtown? That little office was actually a test site for one of my smaller companies. My real office occupied the top 3 floors of a downtown skyscraper, with a view that made Sullivan Group's headquarters look like it was in the suburbs. I manage, I said quietly, picking up my briefcase. The storage room, you said? Through there, Jennifer pointed dismissively. Try not to make too much noise during the meeting. We have actual business to discuss. I walked into the storage room, closing the door behind me. The space was dusty, cramped, and poorly lit, a perfect metaphor for how my family saw me. The Sullivan Group's unwanted daughter, relegated to the background. 5 years ago, I'd been exactly where Jennifer stood now, the rising star of Sullivan Group, next in line for leadership. Then I discovered some disturbing irregularities in the company's practices. Environmental violations swept under the rug. Safety regulations ignored for profit. Workers' rights trampled without a second thought. When I brought my concerns to my father, he'd laughed. "That's business, sweetheart. If you can't handle it, maybe you should find something smaller to occupy yourself." So I did. I walked away using my trust fund to start Sterling Enterprises. The name was a private joke. Sterling had been my mother's maiden name. She died when I was young, leaving me with a fortune she'd built independently of the Sullivan Empire. Money my father had never been able to touch. I built Sterling differently from the ground up. Ethical practices, sustainable policies, fair wages and good working conditions. While Sullivan Group chased quick profits, Sterling invested in long-term stability and innovation. Now, 5 years later, Sterling Enterprises was one of the largest holding companies in the country. We owned stakes in everything from tech startups to manufacturing plants, all operated with the same ethical standards. Our latest target? Sullivan Group itself. The company was vulnerable, though my family was too arrogant to see it. Years of cutting corners had left them exposed. Their stock price was falling. Major clients were jumping ship. They needed a massive capital injection to survive, which was exactly why they'd called this meeting. I settled into a dusty chair between filing cabinets, pulling out my laptop. Through the thin walls, I could hear the conference room filling up. Jennifer's voice carried clearly as she greeted people. "Mr. Maxwell. So wonderful to see you. We're very excited about our upcoming partnership." I smiled, knowing that Mr. Maxwell was actually here to meet with Sterling Sugiyumi. The partnership, Jennifer thought she was negotiating, was actually part of my larger plan to take control of Sullivan Group. My phone buzzed quietly, a message from my assistant. "All preparations in place. Legal team standing by. Other board members have confirmed their support." Another buzz. "Mr. Maxwell asks if you want him to maintain the charade through the whole meeting, or reveal your identity early?" I considered for a moment, then typed back, "Let's see how it plays out. But make sure he knows not to sign anything Jennifer puts in front of him." The storage room door opened suddenly, and my father's latest trophy wife stuck her head in. "Sarah, your father wants you to keep the door closed during the meeting. We can hear you typing." I nodded politely, thinking about how she'd react when she discovered her prenup had been purchased by Sterling last month, along with the private investigator's photos of her tennis lessons with the pool boy. Through the wall, I heard my father start the meeting. Charles Sullivan, CEO of Sullivan Group and patriarch of the family, still commanded attention when he spoke. But there was an edge of desperation in his voice today that hadn't been there 5 years ago. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. As you know, Sullivan Group is exploring new partnership opportunities." Partnership opportunities. Such a nice way of saying they were desperately seeking investors to save them from bankruptcy. The company needed at least $200 million in new capital by the end of the quarter. Coincidentally, that was exactly how much Sterling Enterprises was prepared to offer, with conditions. My laptop showed a notification. Sullivan Group stock had dropped another 2% since market opening. The timing couldn't have been better. I heard Jennifer start her presentation, her voice full of false confidence as she outlined the Maxwell partnership proposal. The same proposal I'd already rejected twice through my Sterling executives. "And with Mr. Maxwell's investment," she concluded triumphantly, "Sullivan Group will be positioned to expand into new markets." "Actually," Mr. Maxwell's familiar voice interrupted, "I'm not here to discuss that proposal. I'm here to meet with the CEO of Sterling Enterprises." The room fell silent. I could practically hear Jennifer's perfectly painted smile crack. I don't understand," she stammered. "The meeting invitation was arranged through Sterling," Mr. Maxwell confirmed. "They now own a significant portion of Sullivan Group's shares, as well as controlling interest in several of your major clients, including my company." "That's impossible," my father's voice boomed. "We would know if someone was buying up our stock." I stood up, straightening my jacket. It was time. "Would you?" I asked, opening the storage room door. "Like you knew your environmental compliance reports were falsified? Or that your Asian manufacturing plants violate international labor laws? Or that your biggest clients have been looking for an ethical alternative?" Every head in the conference room turned toward me. Jennifer's face went pale. Michael dropped his Mont Blanc pen. My father's expression froze somewhere between confusion and dawning horror. "Sarah," he managed. "What are you talking about?" I smiled, stepping fully into the room. "Perhaps we should start this meeting over. After all, it's rude to keep your biggest shareholder in the storage room." The silence in the conference room was absolute. I walked to the head of the table, setting my briefcase down with a quiet but deliberate click. "Sterling Enterprises," I began, enjoying how my father's face paled at each word, "currently owns 47% of Sullivan Group's shares. We also control interests in your major suppliers, hold the majority of your outstanding debt, and as of this morning have partnership agreements with 80% of your client base." That's not possible," Jennifer stammered. "Sterling is run by me," I finished simply. "Has been since I left Sullivan Group 5 years ago. Though I'm not surprised you didn't know, you've all been too busy cutting corners and chasing quarterly profits to notice who was really buying up your company." Michael found his voice first. "But you're just a consultant, working out of some tiny office. That tiny office you love to mock?" I smiled. "It's one of our research and development sites. My actual office is in the Sterling Tower downtown. You know, the building that makes this one look small." I opened my laptop, connecting it to the room's display screen. Charts and graphs appeared, showing Sullivan Group's declining performance over the past 5 years. "Let's review, shall we? Your stock price has dropped 60% since I left. Major clients are fleeing, citing ethical concerns. You're facing 3 separate EPA investigations, and the Department of Labor is very interested in your overseas operations." "Now see here," my father started, his face reddening. "You can't just come in here and—" "I can and I am," I cut him off. "Because unlike you, I built something sustainable. Something ethical. While you were teaching Jennifer and Michael to hide violations and bribe inspectors, I was creating a company that actually follows the laws." Mr. Maxwell nodded approvingly. "That's why we moved our business to Sterling. Their ethical standards are impeccable." "Ethics don't pay bills," Jennifer snapped, but her voice wavered. "Actually," I clicked to the next slide, "they do. Sterling's profit margins are 30% higher than industry standard. Turns out treating workers fairly and respecting environmental regulations is good for business." "Who you?" I distributed folders to everyone at the table. "Inside you'll find our proposal for Sullivan Group's future. We're prepared to inject $200 million in new capital, the exact amount you need to avoid bankruptcy." "And what do you want in return?" my father asked, his business instincts finally kicking in. "Complete control," I said simply. "The Sullivan family will retain 20% ownership, but operational decisions will be made by Sterling's board. Which means things are going to change." Michael laughed nervously. "You can't be serious." "Dad, tell her she can't." "Your sister owns nearly half the company," Mr. Maxwell interrupted. "And she has proxy agreements with other major shareholders. She absolutely can." I clicked to another slide showing Sullivan Group's ethical violations over the past decade. "The choice is simple. Accept our offer and let us clean up your mess, or watch your company collapse under the weight of its own corruption." "You destroy your own family's legacy?" Jennifer asked incredulously. "This isn't about destroying anything," I corrected her. "It's about building something better. Sterling's track record speaks for itself. We turn failing companies into sustainable enterprises. We just happen to be doing it to our own family business this time." My father stood up slowly, his face a mixture of anger and something else. Perhaps respect. "You planned this. All of it. The quiet exit, the strategic acquisitions." "I learned from the best, Dad," I said quietly. "You taught me everything about business. Everything except ethics. For that, I had to look to Mom." He flinched at the mention of my mother. She'd been the moral compass of the family, always pushing for better practices, safer conditions, real corporate responsibility. After her death, those values had died too, at least for the rest of them. "The papers need to be signed today," I continued, pulling out the final documents. "Your creditors won't wait any longer. Neither will the EPA." Jennifer grabbed my father's arm. "Daddy, you can't let her do this. We can find other investors." "Can you?" I raised an eyebrow. "Check your phones. The press release about Sterling's ownership stake just went public. Your stock is already dropping. By market close, you'll be lucky if anyone wants to buy your office furniture. The room erupted in chaos. Board members frantically checked their phones. Michael slumped in his chair, all arrogance gone. Jennifer looked like she might faint. My father picked up the contract, reading it carefully. His hands shook slightly. "You'll keep the Sullivan name?" he asked finally. "The company name, yes. But not the practices that have destroyed it." I met his eyes steadily. "It's time for Sullivan Group to mean something more than profit at any cost." He nodded slowly, then reached for a pen. "Wait!" Jennifer shrieked. "What about us? Our positions are secure," I said calmly, "if you're willing to learn new ways of doing business. Sterling has excellent training programs for ethical corporate governance. Or you can leave with your 20% ownership and find something else to do." "You'd really fire your own siblings?" Michael asked. "I'd really expect my siblings to earn their positions," I corrected. "Like every other Sterling employee does." The contracts were signed within the hour. As people filed out of the conference room, Mr. Maxwell stopped to shake my hand. "Brilliantly done," he said quietly. "Your mother would be proud." I watched my family huddle together in the corner, their world completely upended. Part of me felt for them. Change is never easy. But a larger part knew this was necessary, not just for business but for justice. The next few months were transformative. Sullivan Group's unethical practices were systematically dismantled. New policies were implemented. Workers received better wages and safer conditions. Environmental standards were raised above legal requirements. Jennifer actually surprised everyone by embracing the changes. She threw herself into learning about sustainable business practices, eventually earning a legitimate position in Sterling's corporate responsibility division. Michael struggled more but finally found his place in community relations, where his charm could be used to build bridges instead of hide violations. My father stepped down as CEO but stayed on as an advisor, gradually accepting that his daughter had built something better than he ever had. 1 year after the takeover, I stood in my office at Sterling Tower looking out over the city. The Sullivan Group building was visible in the distance, its logo now paired with Sterling's ethical business certification. My assistant knocked gently. "Your father's here for the quarterly review." I nodded, thinking about how much had changed. The last time I'd seen my father, he'd actually smiled when showing me the company's new sustainability report. "Send him in," I said. "And Jennifer too if she's available. I want her input on the new worker safety initiatives." As they entered my office, my real office, not a storage room, I thought about legacy. About how sometimes saving something means completely transforming it. About how the best revenge isn't in destroying what others built, but in building something better yourself. "Ready to review the numbers?" my father asked, actually looking eager to share the improved performance metrics. I smiled, gesturing to the conference table, where everyone had a seat. "Always," I replied. "After all, that's what happens when you treat everyone like an important client." The Sullivan Group continues to thrive under Sterling's leadership, proof that ethics and profits aren't mutually exclusive. And if anyone ever suggests relegating someone to the storage room during meetings, they're quickly reminded of the day the consultant turned out to own the company. Sometimes the best view of success comes from starting in the storage room. You just have to be patient enough to wait for the right moment to open the door.
The keys felt heavy in my hand as I unlocked the door to my childhood home for what my sister claimed would be the last time. Emily's smug laughter still rang in my ears as she'd waved those documents in my face just hours ago, her perfectly manicured nails gripping the papers that supposedly gave her everything. My name is Alexandra Chen, and at 32, I never expected to be facing homelessness, especially not at the hands of my own sister. But here I was, standing in our father's study, surrounded by the memories of a man who taught me everything I knew about business. Everything except, apparently, how to protect myself from my own family. "You have until Friday to get out," Emily had said, her voice dripping with the same condescension she perfected since we were children. "I'm selling the house, and everything in it belongs to me now. Isn't it funny how things work out?" Funny wasn't the word I would have chosen. 3 weeks after our father's funeral, Emily had somehow produced a will that left everything, the house, the business, the investments, all to her. The timing was suspicious, but the documents looked legitimate. and my sister had always been clever when it came to getting what she wanted. I ran my fingers along Dad's mahogany desk, remembering all the nights I'd spent here as a teenager, watching him work, learning about the family business. While Emily had been out partying through college, I'd been here, soaking up every lesson Dad had to teach. The import-export company he'd built from nothing had been his pride and joy, and I'd spent the last 10 years helping him grow it even further. "You're just like me, Alex," he often say, his eyes crinkling with pride. "You understand that success isn't about quick wins. It's about playing the long game." The long game. I smiled slightly as I remembered those words, even as I heard Emily's heels clicking down the hallway toward the study. "Still here?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. "I thought I told you to start packing. The new owners want to do a walkthrough next week." I turned to face her, taking in the designer outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Emily had always been about appearances, about showing the world how successful she was. But Dad had taught me that true success wasn't about what you could show, it was about what you knew. "Just gathering some personal items," I said calmly, picking up a framed photo from Dad's desk. It was from my college graduation, me in my cap and gown, Dad beaming beside me. Emily hadn't attended the ceremony, claiming she had a spa appointment she couldn't reschedule. "Personal items?" Emily scoffed. "Did you miss the part where everything belongs to me now? That includes the photos, the furniture, even Dad's precious collection of business journals. Though why you want those boring old things is beyond me." I carefully set the photo back down, noting how Emily's eyes narrowed at my composure. She'd expected tears, begging, maybe even a fight. My calmness was clearly throwing her off balance. "You know what's interesting, Emily?" I said, moving toward the bookshelf where Dad kept his most important documents. "Dad always said that the most valuable things in life aren't always the most obvious." She rolled her eyes, checking her reflection in her compact mirror. "Spare me the fortune cookie wisdom, Alex. You're broke, I'm rich, and soon you'll be out on the street. That's all there is to it." But that wasn't all there was to it. Not even close. As I ran my fingers along the spine of Dad's oldest business journal, I thought about the real inheritance he'd left me, the one Emily knew nothing about. The lessons, the connections, the secret accounts in Hong Kong that only I knew how to access. Dad had always been 10 steps ahead, and he taught me to do the same. "You're right," I said, turning back to her. "I should start packing." Emily's triumphant smile faltered slightly at my easy agreement. She'd been hoping for resistance, for drama she could use to paint me as the unstable sister who couldn't handle losing everything. That's right," she said, recovering quickly. "And don't think about taking anything valuable. I've already cataloged everything worth selling." I nodded, gathering a few personal items into a small box. "Of course. Though I have to ask, what are you planning to do with the business? Dad's company isn't exactly something you can run without experience." Emily waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, I'm selling that too. Some corporate conglomerate made an offer. They'll probably strip it for parts, but who cares? The payout will be amazing." My heart clenched at her casual dismissal of Dad's life's work, but I kept my expression neutral. "I see. Well, good luck with that." As I walked past her out of the study, box in hand, I could feel her watching me, probably trying to figure out why I wasn't more upset. She'd expected me to break down, to beg her to reconsider, to fight her for what was rightfully mine. But Dad had taught me better than that. He'd shown me that sometimes when people think they've won, that's when they're most vulnerable. And Emily, in her rush to claim everything for herself, had missed the most important inheritance of all. I made my way to my old bedroom, setting the box down on my childhood bed. The room looked exactly as it had when I left for college, walls lined with academic awards and business competition trophies, while Emily's room down the hall was still plastered with boy band posters and fashion magazine cutouts. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, Dad's longtime friend and business partner. "Everything in place. Ready when you are." I smiled, thinking about the look that would cross Emily's face when she realized what was really going on. Dad had always said that in business, like in chess, you had to think several moves ahead. And while Emily had been focused on the obvious prizes, the house, the cars, the visible trappings of wealth, she completely missed the real game being played. The sound of Emily's voice drifted up from downstairs. She was already on the phone with a real estate agent, discussing listing prices and potential buyers. Let her plan, I thought. Let her think she's won. Because in 3 days, when she tried to sell Dad's company, she'd discover that sometimes the most valuable inheritance isn't listed in any will. Sometimes it's hidden in plain sight in the lessons learned over countless nights in a study, in the relationships built over years of hard work, and in the careful planning of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. I picked up my box and walked downstairs, past Emily, who was still chattering about property values, and out to my car. As I pulled out of the driveway, I caught a glimpse of her in my rearview mirror, standing in the doorway with that satisfied smirk still on her face. "Enjoy your victory, Em," I muttered, turning onto the main road. "While it lasts." 3 days passed like a slow-motion countdown. I'd moved into a small apartment downtown, the kind of place Emily would consider beneath her. But location didn't matter. What mattered was that it was directly across from Dad's company headquarters, giving me a perfect view of what was about to unfold. That morning, I watched from my window as Emily's red Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. She stepped out in her designer suit, probably dressed to impress the corporate buyers she thought would be stripping apart Dad's legacy. I couldn't help but smile as I noticed Marcus's car already parked in his usual spot. My phone buzzed. A message from Linda in accounting. "She's here. Conference room B, everything's ready." I took a deep breath, straightening my own blazer as I gathered my files. Dad's voice echoed in my memory. "The best business deals aren't made in boardrooms, Alex. They're made in the quiet moments, in the relationships you build when nobody's watching." For 10 years, I'd been building those relationships. While Emily had been posting Instagram photos from exotic vacations, I'd been learning every aspect of the business. I knew every employee by name, understood every contract, and most importantly, I had earned their trust. The elevator dinged as I reached the executive floor. Through the glass walls, I could see Emily sitting in the conference room, tapping her perfectly manicured nails impatiently on the table. She was alone, no sign of the corporate buyers she'd been bragging about. "Miss Chen," Marcus greeted me with a knowing smile as I approached. "Ready?" I nodded, clutching the folder that contained everything we'd been preparing for. "Let's do this." Emily's head snapped up as we entered the conference room, her eyes narrowing when she saw me. "What are you doing here? This is a private meeting." "Is it?" I asked, taking a seat across from her. Funny, because as the majority shareholder of Chen Imports, I'd say I have every right to be here. The color drained from her face. "What are you talking about?" "The will gave me everything, including the company." Marcus cleared his throat, sliding a document across the table. "Actually, Ms. Chen, your father's will gave you his personal assets, the house, cars, and liquid investments. But the company?" He paused, allowing himself a small smile. "That's a different matter entirely." Emily snatched the paper, her hands shaking slightly as she read. I could pinpoint the exact moment reality hit her. Her perfectly composed facade cracked, replaced by dawning horror. This can't be right," she stammered. "Dad transferred 60% of the company's shares to Alex?" "When?" "2 years ago," I said calmly. "Right after you told him his business was boring and you'd rather focus on your social media influencer career. Remember that family dinner?" She did remember. I could see it in her eyes. The night she laughed at Dad's offer to learn the business, declaring that she was meant for bigger things than import-export work. But the buyers," she sputtered. "They're coming today to make an offer." "No, they're not," Marcus interjected, "because the company isn't for sale. In fact, under Alex's leadership, we just secured 3 major new contracts that will double our revenue within the year." Emily's face flushed red with anger. "This isn't fair. I'm his daughter too. I deserve." "What exactly do you deserve, Emily?" I cut in, my voice sharp. "You've never worked a day in this company. You don't know our employees, our clients, or our operations. The only thing you've ever cared about is what you could get out of it." She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You planned this, didn't you? You and Dad, you were always so close, always excluding me." "No, Emily," I said, standing as well. "You excluded yourself. Every time you dismissed his work as beneath you, every time you chose a party over a family dinner, every time you made it clear that his legacy meant nothing to you. Those were your choices." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I couldn't tell if they were from genuine emotion or frustration at losing control. "So what now? You're just going to take everything?" I shook my head. No, you can keep the house and everything else from the will. But the company? That stays with someone who actually cares about it, and the people who depend on it for their livelihoods. Marcus stood, gathering his papers. I believe we're done here. Ms. Chen, your office needs to be cleared out by the end of the week. Emily stared at me, a mix of rage and disbelief on her face. You think you've won, don't you? That you're so clever, just like Dad always said. This isn't about winning, Emily, I replied, gathering my things. It's about protecting what matters, something Dad tried to teach both of us, if you'd ever bothered to listen. As she stormed out of the conference room, her heels echoing down the hallway, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Through the windows, I could see employees trying to hide their smiles. They'd all known this was coming, had all been part of keeping the secret until the right moment. Marcus placed a hand on my shoulder. Your father would be proud, Alex. He always said you were the one who understood what really mattered. I nodded, looking around at the office that had been my second home for so many years. He taught me that success isn't about what you own. It's about what you build, what you protect, and who you become in the process. A month after the conference room showdown, I sat in Dad's old office, my office now, reviewing quarterly reports. The view of the city skyline was the same, but everything else had changed. Emily had made good on her threat to sell the house. Though the buyers backed out when they discovered the extensive repairs needed, she'd been too busy posting on social media to maintain the property properly. My intercom buzzed. Ms. Chen, my assistant Sarah's voice came through. Your sister is here. She's insisting on seeing you. I took a deep breath, straightening the papers on my desk. Send her in. Emily looked different from the last time I'd seen her. The designer outfit was gone, replaced by something more subdued. Her perfectly styled hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, but the biggest change was in her eyes. The smugness was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like humility. Alex, she said, hovering in the doorway. Can we talk? I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Of course. She sat down, fidgeting with her purse strap. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. I sold the house, she finally said. I heard. The money, it's almost gone. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Turns out maintaining a luxury lifestyle is expensive when you don't actually have a source of income. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. What do you want, Emily? I've been thinking, she said, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. About Dad, about everything he tried to teach us. I didn't understand it then, but I think I'm starting to now. What's there to understand? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. You got exactly what you wanted. The money, the assets. She shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. No, I got what I thought I wanted, but sitting in that empty house, going through Dad's things. I found his journals. My heart skipped a beat. Dad's business journals had been his most prized possession, filled with not just business strategies but personal reflections, lessons he'd hoped to pass on to both his daughters. Did you read them? I asked. Emily nodded, wiping her eyes. Every single one. The way he wrote about you, about how proud he was of your dedication. Your understanding of what really matters. But you know what hit me the hardest? The entries about me. She pulled a worn leather journal from her purse, opening it to a marked page. He wrote, Emily has so much potential, if only she could see beyond the surface. Money can be earned and lost, but knowledge, wisdom, relationships, these are the true measures of wealth. I remembered that entry. Dad had written it the night Emily had refused to attend a crucial client dinner, choosing instead to go to a celebrity party. He never gave up hope that you'd understand, I said softly. But I didn't, Emily replied, her voice breaking. Not until it was too late, and now I have nothing. No real skills, no purpose, just a dwindling bank account and a lot of regrets. I stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the city. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the buildings Dad had pointed out to me countless times, telling me stories about the deals made and lessons learned in each one. You're wrong, I said finally, turning back to face her. You don't have nothing. You have the most valuable thing Dad tried to give us, the opportunity to learn, to grow, to understand what really matters. Emily looked up, hope flickering across her face. What are you saying? I'm saying, I continued, returning to my desk, that if you're serious about understanding Dad's legacy, about learning what he tried to teach us, there's a place for you here. Her eyes widened. You'd give me a job. After everything I did. Not give, I corrected her. Offer, you'll start at the bottom, just like I did. You'll learn every aspect of the business, work your way up. No special treatment, no shortcuts. Why would you do this? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. I pulled out one of Dad's old journals, opening it to the last entry he'd written before his death. Because Dad believed in second chances, he wrote here, business is about profit, but family is about growth. Sometimes the greatest returns come from investing in people when they're ready to change. Emily stood up, her hands trembling slightly. I won't let you down this time. Either of you. I know, I said, standing as well. Because this time you understand what you're working for. As we walked out of the office together, I caught our reflection in the glass walls. Two sisters, finally on the same page, ready to build something meaningful together. Dad had always said that the true measure of success wasn't in what you accumulated, but in what you built and who you helped along the way. That evening, as I locked up the office, I paused at Dad's old photo on the wall. You were right, I whispered. The long game isn't just about business strategy. Sometimes it's about giving people the time they need to understand what really matters. Emily was waiting by the elevator, holding Dad's journal close to her chest. As we rode down together, I realized that maybe this was the inheritance Dad had wanted all along. Not just the company's success, but the chance for both his daughters to understand the true value of his legacy. Sometimes the greatest victories aren't about winning or losing, but about finding the wisdom to know what's truly worth fighting for. And as Emily and I stepped out into the evening air, ready to begin this new chapter together, I knew that Dad would be proud of both of us, not for what we owned, but for what we were finally ready to build.